match there, but now I'm sure things will speed up once again with tom60229, which I incorrectly read as the second match of the day earlier on, up against DawN. Two players who last season were in Division B, this time getting through to Division A narrowly just for DawN. But even in Division B, they had very, very different stories once they were there last season.
It's true. Tom was dominating, seeming like confident throughout the middle of the series. And to be fair, in Division B, once you do get to the top four, there's a chance to get the playoffs. But the real big thing, I would say, is just the fact that you avoid any chance of relegation whatsoever. For DawN, on the other hand, he was right there at the very brink of relegating, eventually beating out Frosty and surviving for another season. But now it's such a huge turnaround. He's in the upper division and was the champion of week 3. So I feel like DawN's mental state at a peak.
I think so, and this is where I think DawN functions well. We see, as I've said time and again, players, I think Glory fits into this camp, where when he's doing well, that is when he starts to struggle, because the pressure of actually, getting that win starts to get to him. DawN, on the other hand, just seems to get depressed, to be honest, when he's losing these games. He gets dejected, he's hanging his head, he's like actually visually hitting himself to try and snap himself awake and get back into the game. But now he's in Division A, he can take a more light-hearted approach, which is DawN as a player, I think. I was watching his stream a little bit over the weekend, or over the week, I should say, and even though I didn't understand a word of it, because he streams in Korean, obviously, he was clearly having a very good time and was taking a very light-hearted approach, despite being right up at the top of Legend Ladder.
Right. DawN is a very happy and jolly person from the few times I've gotten to speak to him, even though he always says his English is very bad. You can just make out a lot of what he's trying to get across because he's very expressive, and his English is actually not that bad whatsoever. Tom, also a player that is very well known for his stream, on top of being the world championship at the world champion a couple years ago, and the lineup from Tom surprisingly does not feature Zoo this week.
Right, and I wonder if this from Tom is a case of the fact that he wasn't too happy with his list in previous weeks. I mean, he did reasonably well in Specialist with Zoo. He got through to the top 8, but then he didn't manage to get through to the top 4 and fell pretty quickly out of the standings with that. And, as I've talked about with you and some of the other casters, really wasn't a fan of Tom's list with the Nephset Thrashers thrown in there instead of the slightly more modern lists that we're seeing with the Shadow-like Scholars thrown in there as well. But I will say that Tom, I don't think it's so much that he has pet decks. It's more that he just relies on his own opinions of the game very heavily, which I think, oftentimes means he'll go with one deck over and over again because he just thinks it to be the best deck. But in other times, it means he will do stuff like bringing the Bomb Warrior that he has here without the Pirate package, which is, for the most part, very unfashionable.
Indeed, he's cut Risky Skipper, Armor Smith, and the Battle Rage in order to make room for more of a controlling set of cards, I would have to say. There's the one Ramming Speed in here, which it's been a long time since I've seen, what's the name of that weapon?
Oh, Super Collider?
Kaleido something. Yes, it's been a while. It's come back now in the form of Ramming Speed somewhat. And there's also an Athletic Studies in here, which I have just never seen anyone else play this card. But we are just going to start off first with Tom on the Druid up against DawN's Burgle Rogue.
Very good, Mr. Tom. He's got a fresh new haircut, it would seem, and a fresh new approach to the game, because this is disgusting.
Indeed. You can get down an early Overgrowth and an early Guardian Animals, and DawN has no questing in sight.
So how do you do it? Coin, Lightning Bloom, Overgrowth gets you to 2 mana next turn with 2 overloaded crystals. So
yeah, and then you have to skip another turn before you can bait the Guardian Animal. So I think the optimal way is to go just pass this turn into the bait Lightning Bloom. I mean, Lightning Bloom Overgrowth, and then you pass that turn, and then you go Coin Guardian. I think that's one sooner.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little bit more complicated again now, but oh my god.
Oh.
Because there's Exotic Mount Seller in hand, I was going to say, which you do have to save some of these spells for. But with Coin, Innovate, and Lightning Bloom still left in hand, I don't think that's going to be any kind of a worry whatsoever that he'll have enough spells for it.
Okay, it's a small consideration to hold back if you don't immediately get targets to rush
Yeah.
into. And we could just see DawN play 0 minions this turn because it's just not pretty the way that you activate it. But Plagiarize 1 Thief would be my first guess here.
Right, so were you actually thinking with the Lightning Bloom that he would go for Guardian Animals on his 5 mana turn with getting everything out into Guardian Animals?
Yeah, it could be.
So many options.
I didn't even consider that. I was looking at the Mount Seller, but it's a possibility for sure. He's got to be afraid of the fact that he has the full Beast package with 2 Threshers, 2 Teacher's Pets, and 2 Twilight Runners, so there's a decent chance he misses out on card draw, which he definitely needs to be afraid of.
DawN prioritizing Misdight here to probably look for a proactive Lackey. These are good for getting back on the board against smaller minions, but not good for threatening against Druid.
Ooh.
And then in the end, Tom, of course, decides to hold back on some of the spells to make sure that he can still follow up with Mount Seller the turn after. Ray is my first guess here.
Yep, just want something cheap here, I think it's fair to say. This hand looks to me like it's leading up to quite clearly going for a secret passage and just praying that you hit an Edwin off the top of it. Okay, underwhelming Plagiarize for sure there. You can go again. However, Guardian Animals being summoned for what, 2 Pharaoh Cats sounds a bit less impressive than what the Druid is doing.
Is it time for DawN to just believe he can hit an Edwin off of the secret passage? Everything just feels like he just knows there's looming disaster on the horizon. Tom has spent a bunch of ramp.
This needs an Edwin! This needs an Edwin! Oh, okay, it's pretty good.
Man.
Hanar Prep Secret, if he can find one, would be pretty good.
Evocation.
Okay.
I mean, there's no secret to prep out with Hanar, but he can just play it alongside Pharaoh Cat, spend the step, and there's another chance to hit the secret with this one.
Right, any Mage Secret I think would be pretty premium to prep out here. Missiles,
Yikes.
I guess you're taking? I mean, he kind of needs to start hitting some value. It is a
At
yikes.
this point, just prep Encanter's Flow. Then the prep.
I guess.
It's a whole bunch of nothing. At least in the face of a huge GA turn.
What does Incantus Flow even hit? Like, there's
The other passage.
secrets, the other passage. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few things. But I think I would have just taken 3 damage to the face there, to be perfectly honest.
It would be cool if it turned your 0-cost spells into Innervates.
That
No
would
negative
be cool.
mana.
Oh my god, the broom as well to go with the Mount Seller.
Oh my.
Doing all this to get
Yep.
hero power.
Even expending
Sure.
2 spells just to make sure he can get through to this Hanar. You lose 2 immediate procs on the Mount Seller, but I think from this position, Tom just knows that Hanar is possibly the only way he falls behind.
I completely agree with the point. Okay, Sap can come down on the Thresher, I suppose. Sucks putting it back to hand though, because you know the broom is potentially there.
Maybe you can start with Dragon's Horde and go from there.
Okay. Whoa. I mean, I want King Crush and Shando Wildclaw, so I can play Shando, step it, and then go King Crush Shando for an 16 damage combo.
Or on turn 10, you can Shando copy your Winged Guardian. But at this point, DawN says he's so far behind that we're taking Bandersmosh.
I mean, that was actually a real thing. I didn't even consider
Yeah.
the Winged Guardian Shando copy. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, imagine getting to turn 10.
It's not conditional Shando, right? You just get it. You just choose one, right? You don't have to have your requirement. Yeah,
Well, if the Wing Guardian sticks.
yeah. I guess that is a little bit ambitious.
Right. Tom can go off now, and even if he gives an ambush proc, then he would have room to potentially deal with it. Plagiarize, however, is kind of scary to give all this stuff from DawN.
Yeah, exactly. He knows there's no ambush in the list. It's really just the fact that he knows 100% now that this is an he knows it's the plagiarize, sorry. So I wonder if he's trying to give bad spells last. I think that was maybe supposed to be Lightning Bloom then Broom, because then you don't give the Broom to them because they're at 6 cards in hand, whereas Broom can be pretty scary against this board.
It's true. Potentially just doesn't want to give the Bloom at all. He doesn't have anything to spend
fair.
with the This is so weird.
Oh.
Okay, there wasn't a Broom anyway. Not enough space.
Oh, right, okay. It still didn't get through. Okay, my mistake.
That's a Ras Frost Whisper is the Bander's Watch. But this has to be a Mount Seller turn. You can even backstab.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it was pretty sick the way that Tom ordered it, actually, then. And,
Well, go,
yeah.
DawN!
Go. Yep. It's the line.
I think he starts with stab on the 3-1. He can also Bog Beam the other Mount Seller and just deal with it with his Arcane Breath and Claw.
Raz?
Wait.
What can he do? Raz...
Oh wait, there was a little bit... Not
Bog
enough mana
Beam?
to deal with the Mount Seller.
I mean, I don't care about that, really. I just want to get down a big board.
I think he's just prioritizing getting rid of the Mount Seller here.
Okay.
So we're looking at Bog Beam to get it down to 4, and then
Bog
he needs
Beam.
to get it down to 1.
Right. Arcane Breath Claw? Or Arcane Breath Bait Dagger?
Right. I don't think you want to bait because there's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the line I was looking at with Mount Seller was actually, I think, 1 mana short of dealing with the Mount Seller cleanly.
Uh-huh.
So he's just
Okay,
prioritizing
okay.
getting that down.
I guess I can respect that.
Yeah. Me too. And if you're Tom, this feels like you can go for Overflow.
Yeah, it's really just whether you think it's worth, like, tempoing out the Lake Thresher on this turn, because without a Ysera already played, the Overflow isn't gaining you any tempo right now, but the follow-up is likely to be so strong.
And now he can go Iron Bark X2 if he really wants to take a value trade. But with the second Mount Seller in hand, it's definitely worth thinking about holding on to 1.
Yeah, I mean, what he really needs to be afraid of here is the fact that there is a Mount Seller in his opponent's hand.
Right.
And so he wants to be able to make sure that he can answer that as best as possible, which, I mean, possibly was achieved through double Iron Bark, which he could have gone for, stick something on the board. But possibly he just wants to save as many spells to go with the Mount Seller plus Broom next turn, which makes sense to me.
Indeed. But this definitely looks like the time to pop off for DawN now. There's so much he can do with this Mount Seller.
I mean, how do you... Like, what about Edwin just on this turn, though, right? Like, he can go bananas with this Edwin.
I think you get more stats with Mount Seller. They're spread wide, but
Mount Seller, Bait, Studies... Oh, you do so much
if you
stuff.
look at every spell, 2+2 on
Yeah.
Edwin, you can look at every spell as another random 3-cost beast. What? This is the line I least
Whoa.
expected.
Wow. I mean,
So he's trying to save up for Mount Seller plus Edwin on the same turn. That's what this looks like to me.
I guess, but even then, that doesn't really come until turn 10, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, then he could go Mount Seller,
Right,
Bait,
right,
Backstab, Edwin, which is pretty good, you know. You're making a
Yeah.
decent board, but if you want to get Nature Studies and Ray of Frost in there, that's 2 turns away.
It just feels so reactive. The plan, I'm still struggling to see it come together from DawN because if Tom gets on board here, suddenly his Mount Seller / Edwin turn is so much worse.
Yeah, like the really scary thing there for Tom was, I think, for DawN, sorry, was pretty undeniably the Thresher, which could come down with animated broomstick. But now with questing Adventurer found, this has got to be a questing Edwin turn, right? This is insane. I don't care about the Mount Seller anymore. Get this in play.
Yeah, he also just doesn't have a backstab target anymore. The ordering is a small concern because when you kill off the Porcupine, it's gonna deal 6 to the board. But I think you can just play like Nature Studies bait first before you go for the double ray on this, and most of the time, you guys should survive.
Okay.
But now he won't have mana to play Edwin!
Yeah. There's no rogue cards that he can either Shadow Step as well. Or is it Vendetta? Vendetta can be played because of Ray of Frost in hand?
Right?
Choose soon.
I don't know. I'm very lost, Tarok.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point, probably better to just freeze the Porcupine instead of killing it. Yeah, survive more things on board. Ship this face. And have passage for Edwin next turn. I mean, for questing next turn.
Fair enough. Yeah, maybe this was just better on average than questing Adventure. You get a lot of stuff. Just the Thresher, though. That's what you're afraid of from your opponent's side. Obviously, it doesn't come down in the end. He's going with the exotic Mount Seller line instead.
Well, the big thing is that Tom is able to play the Broomstick here, so he can actually answer the majority of this. DawN has to go back to the drawing board.
Does indeed. Questing Secret Passage, I guess, is just what he's got to go for with Ray of Frost first.
Haunting up the Porcupine, I think, looks pretty good here because it just threatens to blow up so many things on the other side after it dies.
I mean, this is just so complicated already for these players.
Yeah, I think 4-6 into 2-4 and then 5-5 into Mokta.
Yeah. Sure, of course they both go face.
Oh.
Right. Questing Ray of Frost Passage.
You have Anna to work with? Is it ever just one questing?
Cost spells though, right?
Okay, yeah. All the secrets cost 1.
Right, so you can play like 1 mana Dragon's Horde. 0 mana Dragon's Horde, 1 mana Secrets. Things of that ilk.
Yeah, really want to see Stunner with Secret here.
Yeah.
For DawN.
It's okay. He could backstab, Shadow Step a Hunter minion to make the Vendetta playable.
That's correct.
I don't even know if that's worth it. I mean, like, if you Shadow Step the 4/4, I guess that's still technically a Hunter token, right? That would come off the Bloated Python after you trade it.
I honestly do not know.
I think that's how it works. That's what he's going for. That is how it works.
Okay, cool.
Correct. Good job, DawN. Okay. No secret to sap back the exotic Mount Seller, but you'll take what you can get. Reducing or increasing the cost of spells is huge at this point as well.
Even just gonna backstab this. I do not think that was optimal, but there were so many things to consider. Plus, I had to fit in a quick Google there to figure out that this was even a Hunter minion.
Oh my god, 2 minions, +4/+4, obliterating this board. That's just not going to do it for DawN.
Right? I mean, the 10-10 is just that little bit too awkward, but Tom knows now. DawN has 2 cards in hand. One of them is a 4/4, so even if Tom takes super suboptimal trades, he is fine.
I mean, he has to lose the Mount Seller here to clear it off. It's really blooming awkward.
Awkward, but it's fine. He has value for days. DawN has no cards. Just kill the questing. You never lose.
We're looking at 0 mana Dragon's Horde Deathwing isn't a class minion though, so you can't discover
Correct.
it, is what I was about to say. So what can he get here?
Fireheart? Other Deathwing?
Other Deathwing? What?
I don't think other Deathwing is good enough. It
Can't even
will
remember what the
lose so
board
much
looks like.
HP on it.
Yeah.
I want to say Fireheart and pray for miracles.
Never be afraid of
Mhm.
your inner
Yeah, the
power.
Death just died. Assassinate?
Yeah, I mean, you have to play it, so
Expensive,
you
though.
just take the cheap one, yeah. He's looking for prep, I suppose, as the dream outcome. Vendetta is playable, right?
No, it
for
can't
0
cost
mana.
more than it can't cost 0 that you discover from Fireheart.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah.
This is very flashy, but it's not getting enough done. Sap, okay, for the last one, that's pretty big.
That is a big deal. He's alive,
Somehow,
and the last spell,
Plague of Madness?
Plague, yeah, to try and clear off a big minion? Sure, okay.
This is such a strange game.
It's ludicrous. The educated Elic spells coming through for Tom now as well, which are pretty good. Just straight up. He's got a mage spell in hand, so he can get down the Vendetta as well.
You fell right into my trap.
Yep, and that can make quick work of the Poisonous. At this point,
Mhm.
I think you just leave the Fireheart alone. Push the 6. Okay, has there been both Shadow Steps played?
Yeah, that's what you're afraid of, right?
I mean, you do just push the 6 off the Death Rattle anyway. Okay.
Almost out of cards.
DawN has 1 card left in deck.
I don't think it's a card that's going to win him the game, I've got to say.
Miscreant for Draconic into Deathwing. That's the
Yeah.
out I'm thinking of.
Spells,
There's
I mean,
an Ethereal. There's a way. Daring
infinite
Escape.
Shadow Steps, maybe?
Okay. Scheme? Not the
Scheme?
king.
Oh, it's got to be a Vis, right? It's got to be a Vis and just hope you can cheese them. I mean, it doesn't
Okay.
get there, but
Yeah. I mean,
maybe
this
it
is
gets
just
there.
an Edwin and try to cheese turn because even though Edwin is dead to the dagger, sometimes has to take that damage. To deal with Edwin. Why not get the teacher's pet and then potentially Vendetta the Death Rattle?
I completely agree.
Agreeing with a question. That is just the state of Hearthstone we're in right
That's where we're at, yeah.
Is- Surely this is close to, but Power of the Wild is, I think, 1 off with Hero Power.
What is this? 9, and then
Yeah.
doesn't have mana to. He's 1 off, so he's just freezing it. Okay, you can't unfreeze it unless you generate Living Dragon Breath, which I don't think is possible at this point. Unless he goes like Evil Miscreant into Faceless Lackey and Witchy Lackey, and then upgrades his 2-drop into Living Dragon Breath, which could then
Keep
unfreeze
going,
his
Derek.
Edwin.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
And then Ethereal Lackey is the last minion, gets him Sap, which still isn't quite lethal.
That was better than anything I could have come up with that amount of time. So congratulations, but DawN is out of outs. There's another Miscreant, but not enough mana to work with to actually heal him or
Yeah.
deal lethal to Tom.
Blade Flurry Poison does not work together. That's not going to clear the board. He's going. He's looking for it. You can't fault him for that.
Yep. Double Abysses.
Juice, I give up.
Not gonna get the job
Oi,
done.
oi,
And
oi.
finally, what a game! I don't know what happened ever since the Plagiarize gave DawN Mount Cellar, but he didn't go off with it until much later. I got lost.
Such a weird game. I mean, those 2 or 3 turns with the Questing Adventurer, the Edwin, and the Exotic Mount Seller, those were the turns, right? That was where I think more than anything else, it was decided for DawN. And I'm sure there are many, many ways that we can look at that there and try and figure out different ways he could have approached it, whether or not he should have gone with Edwin first to just make a huge Edwin. He could have gone questing and Edwin on the same turn. He could have saved back some spells. It could have been a quicker Mount Seller. It could have been an even later Mount Seller to try and go with Edwin on the same turn to make one huge board. Too many different things to try and work through in the short amount of space of time that we have. But a super interesting game, if nothing else.
For sure. I mean, Plagiarize has just caused so many of these niche situations, be it in Rogue versus Mage or Priest or even Druid now. If you can steal an entire combo, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mana Cyclone, etc., you can also steal Mount Seller and cheap spells. I will say I like that one turn where DawN held back and went for the rest to make sure that he dealt with the opposing Mount Seller, but I can't quite wrap my head around why he didn't play his Mount Seller the turn after, when Tom had hardly any threats. Would be great to hear the players' thoughts on that some other time, though, but that was just a game one, so we're just at the beginning of the series.
It really was. I'm exhausted already. We're actually doing a full day's work here in APAC, it would seem, with the games taking a regular amount of time, not just being super turbo through the day at all points. But still, a lot of fun here nonetheless with DawN versus tom60229, battling it out in Division A and trying to fight to be in those top 6 spots at the end of these 4 weeks to get through to the playoffs in our final week of play. Still early days, though. It's a great time to join us here in Hearthstone Grandmasters because we're still in the first week of round robin. So when we come back, we are going to see who does get that first win on the table of the round robin. For Tom or DawN, it would be a huge deal for either. You're watching DawN up against tom60229 here on Hearthstone Grandmasters. The Asia Pacific region, as always, comes first in the day, and depending on our length, we are followed by Europe or Americas shortly or longly afterwards, depending on how long we go. And it's looking like a slightly longer day. We're seeing a lot of the rogues go the distance, playing for the value matchups, be it against Druid or Priest. A very, very versatile deck, Gia. And I think even ignoring some like technical misplays we've seen along the way, I think in general, the overall macro game plan seems to be pretty well understood by all of our players so far.
For sure. I think this meta in particular, you can in some aspects call it high skill cap in the fact that there are many, many niche situations generated by a lot of the popular cards like Plagiarize, Mindrunner, Lucia, etc. But I think that the other side of that is the frustration that it's also a very power spike heavy meta.
Yeah.
And I really am excited for the balance changes to maybe hit a sweet spot in the middle. But whether or not we stayed on this patch, I think there's definitely room to tighten up play no matter where you look, and that makes for some very interesting Hearthstone. So here we are now with DawN on his Soul Demon Hunter with double Mana Feeder Panthera in the opener. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, super nice matchup, I think, for the Demon Hunter, and a nice starting hand. The question mark I have is Soul Shear, which I think is honestly just one of the bad cards in the deck that you kind of have to play to activate your cards that work off of Soul Fragments, be it obviously Shard Shatter or Lapidary. So I think I probably would have liked to see him say, okay, I have Panthera, I can kind of keep up in the early game anyway, but you know, there's some reason to have an answer to a tempo Sorcerer's Apprentice, I suppose.
Absolutely. Tom's hand has been very, very slow. We could just see the cram session for one draw, which is awful. He is just going to say that no matter what he draws, he's likely to go Arcane Intellect the next turn anyway, so he's saving session for a bit more value with something like a lab partner later on.
Wow, okay. This is pretty cool. I was actually looking at DawN there. I was thinking, like, I don't really want to go Coin Hero Power Panthera here, so I was looking at instead going Chaos Strike on that turn. But I actually really like the recognition of he doesn't need to draw too many cards here. It's more important to just get this down and deal the damage. I really, really like this line.
It's quite frankly just saying that I would rather have a coin in my hand than a different card in my deck, a random card in my deck. And it makes a lot of sense if you have this curve to follow up with the Marrow Slicer, and having the coin allows you to go for, say, a bigger Glaive Bound or just make Skull of Gul'dan come down a turn earlier.
Yeah, I think it's very, very good recognition. On the other side, though, Tom is doing absolutely nothing in these early turns and is going for the game plan that sometimes works and definitely sometimes does not work, of making one super explosive Sorcerer's Apprentice turn to try and blow it out that way.
That's right. Tempo Mage is a combo deck, and Turtle Mage is a tempo deck. Turtle Mage would have played 3 minions by now.
I mean, I kind of disagree. I was today playing purely to spite Subtle Tempo Mage with Bloodfen Raptors instead of Cyclones, because I was saying Cyclones are just 2-mana 2/2s in the deck. You just play your minions on curve. And I'm 1-0 so far, so there we go. It's purely a tempo deck. Bloodfen Raptors are the nuts.
And while normally I would snap pick the 1-cost spell when I could with an Apprentice turn, Tom picked Ice Barrier here, which is so relevant in this particular matchup. Up against this Demon Hunter, if you can put together any type of healing, whereas Mage can only get that from Ice Barrier, it's a huge, huge deal.
Very threatening board represented now for DawN. 2 minions that really have to die here. Or, sorry, I'll rephrase that. If you want to win board, there are 2 minions that have to die here in the Apprentice and the Shenvala, obviously. The alternate plan is point everything that you have in your hand directly at your opponent's face. And I think generally, unless there is exactly Ice Barrier, Frostbolt, or I suppose Mirror Image, you win every time.
That's true. And even Ice Barrier, you can just go over the top. Let's say if it's Soul Shard Lapidary this turn, Tom goes down to 8, back up to 16 with Ice Barrier. So that will buy him another turn because DawN's maximum damage output without the Marrow Slicer for the next turn is 8 with the double Twin Slices and Glaive Bound. Going for card draw here first instead, which means that I would assume not everything is getting sent to the face.
Yeah, I mean, it looked to me like he
Could
was
still be now.
looking to go for Soul Shear plus Consume Magic on that turn, which I think I probably did prefer. I don't think you have to play out the Chaos Strike damage right now.
Yeah, it was... You definitely don't want, as a rule of thumb, to play out coin just to use a lot of your cheap flexible cards,
Yeah.
because that can make everything a lot more clunky later on. But the fact that he's held onto both halves of Twin Slice means that he can still spend his mana super efficiently in the coming turn. Fortunate though that the Skull is going to get locked in the middle with the next draw.
What I will say, though, is that for DawN, in holding on to the Consume Magic, it's worked out beautifully for him because he's able to deal with this taunt. I have no idea if he had a read on this taunt minion because it was played on turn 1, right, the Primordial Studies. No, it wasn't played for many, many turns, so he can have a strong read on it not being Lab Partner, on it not being any of the 2-drops, most likely. And Violet Warden is kind of the only expensive spell damage minion that you want in the matchup.
Such a beautiful.
Very true. Oh, I'm kind of surprised by Soul Shard here over Marrow Slicer because I don't think you can expect this 5/5 to connect base. So the Marrow Slicer actually just presents 3 more damage across 2 turns.
Does this... no, you do the same amount of damage, right? It's still 5, so you're setting up Glavebound lethal, even over another taunt. If that were to
Yeah. I mean, it is setting up lethal either way. I'm just caster visioning over the possibility of Ice Barrier.
So this does mean that even with Ice Barrier now, because he saved the Glavebound, he should be able to figure out it's simply lethal.
Huh?
With Glavebound face, right? He doesn't have to faff about with Ice Barrier.
Oh, true, true. Right, just attack a minion. And that is the big reason.
Perfect. Yeah. Very nicely done there by DawN. It means that even with the Ice Barrier coming down, it's just that little bit too slow. I think I still respect Tom's line of going for the Ice Barrier second and going for the Violet Warden first. It was really just the fact that DawN held back on that Dispel Magic there in order to, or Consume Magic, sorry, in order to be able to get past that taunt that won him the game. And I would 100% have played differently there.
I absolutely agree. I would have used the Consume Magic on Shenvala just because you were just going to spend the turn kind of going for half and half of pushing damage to the face, but also making sure that the most threatening minions from Tom were cleared off. I would have just assumed that Consume Magic was part of that equation. But I think DawN quickly figured out that the real threat there was Apprentice to give Tom more chances at discovering Frostbolt, more so than developing 5/5s, which were not going to push lethal anytime soon on the backswing. So very cleanly done from DawN there, and we're moved up now to 1-all.
Yeah. I think the more I think about it, that was actually just a super clean game from DawN. I love the tempo mana feeder Panthera at the start. I loved saving the Consume Magic because, you know, in all likelihood, the Shenvala, even if it generates another 5/5, it's not going to kill you before you kill them. It was just a very tight game played on the Demon Hunter. Clearly been putting in the work as he instantly spotted exactly how to hit lethal no matter what, even around the Ice Barrier there. We're equalized, of course, at 1 game apiece. Now, Druid and Demon Hunter having 1, which means that for DawN, Warrior out of the way, he's only got his Rogue and his Mage left. And on the other side, it's the same story for Tom, right? Rogue and Mage.
That is very true. So now we do have to just compare slight differences in the list. Rogue feels like there's been a lot of innovation lately. Of course, from Surrender, we saw the double Intrepid Initiates. We're seeing different amounts of secrets and what secrets are being played. But DawN's list looks the most streamlined of all of them. Every card that you can run 2 copies of, there are 2 copies of, and just legendaries. So even Dragon's Horde as a 2 of, it feels like is not the most popular choice, but I kind of like the idea of it just to give you a play on a turn where you might otherwise just be playing like dagger up pass.
And so, interestingly enough, in this matchup, in testing, it definitely felt to me like Tempo Mage was just kind of in the front seat. You know, it was able to cheat out more mana more consistently. But one thing I realized at this is that Mage, at least within Grandmasters APAC, is kind of on the back foot. 35% win rate against the Berg the last few weeks. And although it's not the hugest sample size, I think it does demonstrate that it's clearly not super favorite for one way or the other.
That's pretty surprising to me. I feel like whenever I've played this on ladder, I've had much more success with the Tempo Mage than as the
Same.
Rogue. And this is Grandmasters, and there will be much higher level of play in general. It feels like it wouldn't skew as far as 35%. In any
Yeah,
case, I
again.
like that DawN held on to backstab at the beginning there just to make sure he has a combo activator for the Miscreant. I was going to say one of the reasons why I feel like Tempo Mage has an advantage is that they tend to get on board in a more significant way faster with just the lab partners or even wand makers.
And in addition to that, they have these ludicrous bananas turns that they can go for with Apprentice, Evocation, Mana, Cyclone as well. Everything you could possibly need to generate huge amounts of tempo and value. The only protection that you have against it on DawN's side is the Cult Neophyte that he just drew.
Yeah, the Neophyte is a very, very big deal here. Rogue, while their primary game plan is to put down Edwins and Questings, Mage has a potential response of just freezing them away and developing their own board. But on the other hand, Rogue has ways to disrupt Mage with either Cult Neophyte and potentially Plagiarize just to disincentivize them from going off with the big pop-off turn.
Oh, speaking of the big pop-off turn, Shenvala, Apprentice, Coin, Evocation is getting bananas.
Burned. Turn it up.
Coin for activation and nothing else. So the use of the coin there is quite expensive because Tom's next turn is going to be the pop-off. I was wondering if you just take that turn to be a Frostbolt.
That is definitely what I was looking at. It's kind of proactive development, which is a big deal for sure, to be able to keep the board a bit cleaner for when you go for your eventual Apprentice into Shenvala turn. But the chances of getting a triple spell activation increase drastically when you have the coin. Oh.
Potion has done some pretty nasty things today, but with Hanar, Bamboozle is a consideration as well. And the potion is just quite expensive without prep in hand.
Yeah, it's super slow. I mean, I'm always looking at,
just
Shiv.
Yeah.
Choose soon.
Where you can
Not
kill the
that one.
Firebrand with just dagger.
Yes. I mean, on this turn, if you're going Shiv, it kind of feels like it's worth just going Bad of Knives to completely clear the board, right? You don't get down a Wand Thief, but killing off spell damage, I would argue, is more important right now.
Oh, I see. He leaves the Firebrand and prioritizes removing synergy with a potential Ras this turn.
Yeah, I do disagree with that a little bit. But on the backswing, it's going to be a big turn, looking for any one-mana spells he can hit to cheat out with Shenvala, and he hits none. I guess not going with the Shenvala turn right here.
Yeah. Given that he didn't start with it before the Evo. It's just going to be a Cyclone turn instead, but he's only hit one spell he can play if he wants to fit in the Cyclone this turn. I mean, he can play the Frostbolt, but only the Arcane Missiles is useful from Evocation.
Was this even the turn, though, right? Because
I don't
this
know.
play of going Evocation with Cyclone is not very strong. I feel like you're unlikely to get all too many spells here. He gets 3, which is decent, I suppose, to play. But the things you can do with Apprentice Evocation later on get drastically more impressive.
This was a medium pop-off, and I know that Tom wanted to go for a big response. He felt like he was falling too far behind here, but I feel like all of this is the legacy of having used the coin on the previous turn, whereas you could have had a much more impactful board state.
Cold Blood Gamer, I respect that. This is, I think, going to turn quite drastically towards killing your opponent as quick as possible, which, correct, I agree with that.
That's a nice set of lackeys to go about it, because he gets the most board development deal with the Mana Cycle. Back over to Tom, really looking for a Ras Frost Whisper here.
Oh yeah, that would be absolutely insane.
Or just a perfect use of mana to pair with the Firebrand. Use up a decent amount of this. Unlucky. That's 2 hits on the Miscreant. Yikes.
And it's just kind of clunky now for Tom. The discovery of, or finding, I should say, sorry, the primordial studies is a big deal to activate either Cram Session or Raz, but this hand went from very fluid to pretty clunky, kind of quick.
Give me a quest.
And for DawN, I like that he rips the secret passage with very little hesitation. Want to
Yep.
spend the rest of the time deciding how the post-passage hand gets played.
Awkward for sure, drawing the Vendetta when you want to have something to target with it, but it's fine. Step the Miscreant, get the questing nice and big, and keep that value coming. That's the important thing.
Absolutely.
What?
Dragon's Horde plus Faceless, likely.
One silly. Choose soon.
Oh, Malagos, didn't
Oh.
he have a Brightwing in the original hand?
Yes, he did. Yeah. Because he just played the Dragon's Breath, or the Arcane Breath last turn, and he hadn't played the Brightwing. That's
Whoa.
pretty nuts.
If that picks up any amount of burst, even 0-cost Frostbolt is so huge for Rogue. I
Doesn't
mean,
mean
DawN will overdraw a bit, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think you'd probably rather have a Vendetta in hand than a random card from your deck. So this, I think, is correct.
Okay, the questing is stick around.
Oh boy.
I think you're meant to dig for Ray of Frost here with the
Yeah,
magic
with-
trick.
The alternative being Conjurer's Calling it to give him 2/3 drops. That sounds awful. Like, you're dying very quickly then.
Yeah. By starting with the studies, I think Tom was just
Mm.
thinking, I want to clear up all the minions on the right with a cheap spell damage minion plus Raz and just deal with the questing later on. But now he's picked up a Ray.
Very, very big deal indeed.
And if he had started with Shinvala this
Yeah,
or
yeah,
even
yeah.
start with Magic Trick, things could have looked a lot different. Because he could have gone Magic Trick first. If you hit the Ray, you can still go Raz plus
My
Ray.
hand is too full.
Well, he can get it next turn now. Raz triple Ray of Frost is a very powerful play.
True. Okay, what's in this Malagos?
Yeah. It was close,
Okay, it
right?
doesn't have to happen now. He is just trying to disrupt Tom from popping off as much as possible, which is reasonable because from this board state, Tom needs to do something magical with evocation.
Here, Spellbender, sure. I mean, you know it's just a Ray of Frost in hand, but you're thinking if you can just snipe that one, maybe the questing gets to go face, which is, I think, a good pick.
On with no shortage of resources whatsoever.
I mean, neither is Tom. He just doesn't have a way to get them out of his hand in time to win the game.
I mean, if he can stall towards Puzzle Box, there's a way.
True. So it's still possible to just go Shenvala Triple Secret, but I imagine he's probably leading up towards Raz instead on this turn.
He was really trying to hit Lab Partner here, so he could
Oh,
go
true.
Raz, Lab Partner plus Ray of Frost. But Tom has been getting, to be fair, relatively expensive spell damage minions this entire game.
Okay, draw and freeze. I'm okay with this.
Sure.
Okay, 3 spells there off of Cyclone.
There's no way to prevent Overdraw, right? Because this is still 2 halves of the
Oh, yes.
Ray of Frost.
Correct, yeah.
I was thinking you still probably just take the 3 spells. I'm not sure. Okay, Apprentice is the thing that he really doesn't want to overdraw.
You kind of just need Blizzard or Frost Nova, though, on the next turn. I mean, Ray of Frost,
That's true.
guess is reasonable to just freeze the questing again, and then you're likely to survive on the floor.
This entire game, it feels like Tom's been playing with half of his synergies
Yeah.
all on the wrong timing, which, I mean, he had to do that to survive, but I really, really wonder if having saved the coin that one turn could have made a big difference. Not over, though.
Okay, decent
Snipe,
plays.
potentially big if Tom wants to start with an Apprentice, which is
Yep.
what DawN is most scared of.
That's what you're looking to hit. Cold Blood. Now DawN is starting to end the game. The secrets make it awkward for him to answer, and the minions themselves hit for huge amounts of damage. 18 questing on this turn is ridiculous.
Another dirty tricks felt very unnecessary. DawN's just been overdrawing like nobody's business.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, that's fair. Vaporize. Imagine Mage getting to attack face this game. This is a big mess. But he has Giant Punch to potentially hit
Right, yeah.
Walking Fountain, etc.
Do it twice, like there's Hulking Overfiend, Batterhead, Walking Fountain, Tyrion.
You fell right into my trap.
Snipe doesn't stop it. Okay, okay.
Yikes.
Okay.
Troublemaker potentially deals with some of this board,
Yep.
but you
Go
go again
again.
on the Geppetto.
Going
he's
for
just going for
Doomsayer.
Doomsayer.
Oh, but it doesn't
Oh!
work as a redemption.
I didn't
that's
know
pretty
that's how
fun.
this worked.
That's pretty funny. I'll give you that. And
And the eye for an eye is hilarious of all the places.
Yep, gonna close it out 2-1 here for DawN. And I don't know what's going wrong, Gia. I've got to say, every time on ladder or testing, whatever it may be, I play this rogue deck and it falls apart. It doesn't do anything. It runs out of value. I don't draw the Questings. I don't draw the Edwins. But then I come to APAC GM and all the players, the Korean players in particular, it feels like, with DawN, Chonsu, Surrender, and Rivius, all just playing this deck so beautifully and having so much success with it as well.
I feel like one thing I don't prioritize enough when I'm playing this rogue game is just trying to get down dirty secrets, dirty tricks / plagiarize at the optimal time, which can give you a ton of value. I will say this list from DawN with the double Dragon's Heart probably gives you more consistent things to do in the mid game. But yeah, I think this rogue deck is super difficult to pilot optimally, and we saw from DawN there, it was just plan A that we were seeing. He barely scratched the surface of what he could do with his hand. We didn't even see the Malagos come down. He was just that far ahead. I spent that last couple seconds in the game Googling if the Troublemaker 3/3s only attack face, but they attack random enemies. It just so happened.
Oh, right,
both
okay.
of them went face. I was so confused what happened there.
I mean, that's often the way it feels like. I definitely feel
asked for it.
you there. It's always going face with the 3/3s, always Huffer. There are some universal truths in Hearthstone that you have to learn.
Just like Rag.
Yeah, exactly. But while we just had the Rogue versus the Mage, now we have the Mage versus the Rogue here, with DawN taking on the Tempo Mage this time. A very respectable starting hand, a very strong starting hand, I would actually say. Drawing a whole bunch of cards at the start with Lab Partner and Cram Session is exactly what you want to do.
Indeed. This list from DawN is the one popularized by Orange with the Arcane Breath and Cobalt Spelkins in there. So the one maker also lending itself to just going all in and making sure that you get more out of your apprentice turns. And I feel like this innovation does tend to help smooth out the awkward hands that Mage gets here and there.
The one interesting thing for me there was DawN not going for just playing out the while he had the ability to, the primordial studies into the Lab Partner and then follow up with Cram Session afterwards. Because he could have hit Lab Partner and then coined out. I mean, it works either way, I suppose, but I kind of like to just have more information about the hand by going for it that way.
Well, I'm surprised that he didn't just rip Cram Session for 2 here. I mean, ideally, if you hit another Lab Partner, you can just play it and coin out the Cram Session there, but he ends up floating a mana here.
I think probably to go Dalaran coin Cram Session, it's greedy, for sure, but the extra card can make a big difference.
Definitely can.
Job done.
I mean, whether or not you'd rather have an extra card than the coin is also debatable in this deck, where the coin is a super powerful card to activate a lot of your combos.
True. I mean, obviously, if you don't have Apprentice, then you're much more willing to spend the coin to cycle towards it. But in the meantime, Dom has hit questing, popping off with another 1 Leaf generation.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's just been doing stuff on the other side of the board, and his stuff, as it turns out, was actually pretty good.
Very powerful indeed. Gonna take a secret to make sure he has activation for the Blackjack Center next turn.
Okay, I like that. Clearing up the board, and now
just using Ray of Frost for +1/+1 on the questing. I think that's fine.
yeah. Now for DawN, things get interesting because this is where you have to choose, you know, when are you going in? This turn could very easily be, I think, double Wand Maker on this turn to juice up your 1-mana spells in hand even more. Or it could just be the turn where you go in with Apprentice right out the gate.
Yeah, I like the idea of that, especially since he can just freeze the questing while putting down the Apprentice. Oh.
Whoa.
It was close there between Eve and Frostfall, I have to say.
I'm going to be honest here. That was not close. That was evocation every single time with Giant in hand and all of this nonsense. You could not have stopped me from picking it there. Even with the guaranteed clear, I don't care.
But this is so good. He doesn't even need to be the Wand Maker.
But it's evocation. Evocation is ridiculous.
I mean, you hardly get to play anything this turn if you go evocation, right?
He could have got down a Giant on that turn, is all I'm saying, and I think he probably would have.
Okay.
There's a failure rate, absolutely, built into that where it can all go wrong, but I take that risk every time.
Okay. Decision for Tom whether he wants to reload the intellect. Nah, probably just go for spending all the other cards you won't have next turn.
Play the cards, play the cards, play the cards. He's going to be keeping everything in hand here right now because it was all generated on this turn. So nice full hand ready to go on the following turn, which he's going to need.
Okay. Cobalt is the level 1 play here. Alternatively, 3 minions and just getting the Wand Maker stuff in hand. I suppose the Cobalt just generates the same amount of things as 2 Wand Makers does. So they both contribute equally towards Mana Giant.
All these Razor Frostses looking very, very good as well to go with the Mana Giant. He really just needs to hope that there isn't an answer to it on board. He doesn't really care if it's sap. He just needs to freeze everything every turn and start smacking face with this 8. Also, of course, if he can find Conjurer's Calling off of Wand Maker or now the Mana Cyclone, that would be huge as well for his chances of winning.
That's right. It's getting to the point where even if DawN does get the Giant down for 0, just that is not going to be enough because by this point, Tom is very likely to have hit the stunners and he can play board alongside those.
That's true. That is true. I think my point was just that for the moment at least, DawN can very easily deal with what comes down. And the question is, as the game progresses, who hits a bigger power spike? And I think, on average, the answer is DawN, because he can hit Apprentice, which would obviously be huge. Anytime he finds a Conjurer's Calling, the game can kind of just pack up right there, I feel. Double Blackjack Stunner in hand. It's close! Like, either way, it's
I don't know.
close.
I feel like he absolutely needs that one Apprentice left in deck to pop off, whereas Tom has potential of hitting second questing or Edwin. I just couldn't tell you who I think is in the lead right now. I feel like it's Tom, honestly.
I feel like it's DawN on the other side. Like, he doesn't need Apprentice necessarily to make this all work. I mean, I think that should have just been playing out the Learned Draconic there. Although I guess Secret he was afraid of. No, you don't care about that. I think it should have been Learned Draconic there. But my point is, he has 7 mana next turn. He doesn't need Apprentice. He can just play out a bunch of his 1-mana spells, play out the Cyclone, get back all these cards to his hand, get down Mana Giant, freeze every single big threat that Tom throws down for like 5 turns.
It's true, but in the world after that comes down, if you don't get very, very good spells off the Cyclone, like Power of Creation, the value is looking not too good, whereas Tom can just bounce the Giants indefinitely with double Black Stunner in hand.
Okay, that's good. Primes are fantastic. Any one that you can get, you'll take.
Cheap one?
Yeah, I think that was kind of close to taking the Kirin or Tricaster just because of its synergy with Raz once that is found, but I'm also fine with Reservoir here.
Okay. Mana Giant plus Arcane Breath plus... How many Cyclone Generations is this?
1, 2, 3, 4 so far. So if he plays Arcane Breath and then Apprentice, he will not. Arcane Breath and then Cyclone. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, pretty perfect. This is the big push. Oh, he did hit the Puck. Okay, DawN's in the lead.
That's
was
it.
worried
That's all
about-
it took.
I think he just needed one follow-up to this, right? Because Tom's turn is pretty clear. It's going to be stepping back the Giant at the very least, plus going wide again, and then Tom's ahead on board again. So if DawN's response is just Giant again and freeze, then Tom steps it again. And
Yeah,
by
I
that
mean-
point, Tom has probably drawn Questing or Edwin.
He can Shadow Step, or sorry, Blackjack the Giant back to the hand, but I'm almost wondering if he should go like Cult Neophyte and then step that back to his hand with the Blackjack Stunner, just so he can play it again next turn to stop all these spells. I'm probably getting a little bit too deep there, but like that's such a crucial card for him at this point to shut it all down.
It's crucial, but I think that the big pop-off with the spell turn has already happened.
Yeah.
So the Cult Neophyte value is significantly diminished. And I didn't even spot this line, which is so strong
Yeah.
from Tom. Just delete the Giant because DawN doesn't have hand space.
This is it. This is a super clean line from Tom.
Big push onto the board, and now the Pok is not available.
Oh!
Oh no!
That's bad.
Disastrous overdraw.
Very bad. He's got, however, Solarian or Reservoir
Explosion?
into Arcane Explosion plus Freeze is super
like that.
clean. He can clear off the Hanar even.
Yes. Very strong.
Get himself a 6/6, all looking so clean. I guess part of the reason he didn't go Astromancer Solarian there, even though you'd probably rather have it on the board, is because of exactly Plagiarize. Like, he doesn't want to give his opponent one. And he
Yeah.
doesn't want to play a minion that will die to spell damage plus Arcane Explosion on the backswing as well.
Very true. Faceless Corruptor is pretty big off of Jandis, so now...
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, he doesn't have mana to go for Rolling Fireball this turn anymore, but still, he can just rush and deal with the part of the mana reservoir.
Yeah, I mean, he could make that. He could make the Faceless the vulnerable version, and then go Reservoir Reservoir Explosion, sorry, and take out the 6/6.
Just thinking of that, but I like the idea of potentially just freezing the 6/6 and getting
Okay.
another attack out of the Faceless if you're lucky.
Pretty smart. Ooh, Shenvala, and then if you can play all 1-mana spells, you can get 2 procs, right? Just with going freeze, 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 primordial into, I guess, evocation maybe as well.
That's pretty funny. Realistically, I think it's gonna be Ray of Frost plus Power of Creation. Or Learn Draconic Power of Creation. You immediately get the other 6/6, but
It's huge development. I mean, if it's counterspell though, either way, like, it's pretty gnarly no matter what you counterspell. No mana
now
to get
it's
the
just-
double proc.
Is it cold in here?
yeah,
Or is it just me?
play everything but the Evocation.
Runs out on
Right.
me.
Lab partner's cheap.
Yeah, and then he can get down the Astromancer.
Cool. Oh yeah, freeze one of the big guys. We're not freezing Chandis here.
Strong read from
He
DawN.
guessed wrong. He guessed the
Oh,
wrong
wait,
minion,
what?
Gia. Tom made the 4/4, the vulnerable one, but the other one, the Muck Morpher.
I thought you always put that on the rush, but
So did DawN. Get baited.
Okay, now Tom is in the lead. And he has questing, finally!
Oh my god.
Wait, he's not starting with questing, so it's gonna be a rolling fireball clear instead. Okay, that's
That's
very
pretty
clean.
disgusting, right?
Yep.
Oi, oi, oi. Oh, it's so clean.
Tekkan with Miscreant? Hello?
Tekkan? That's insane! 4-4 lackeys at this point. Illegal.
DawN's had this prime in this Solarian in hand for a long time. Couldn't get it to die.
Yeah,
so he could just look for a prime out for himself. How long has this Rap Golem have been alive?
Needs the apprentice. Like, he's finally running out of Rays of Frosts. It lasted a long time, but the party's over here. He's got to play one, right? You've got to freeze the Golem again.
Mm-hmm. And then just Spell Wing and just beg your deck for second apprentice off the top.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tough because you also really want to go Astromancer, but the thing is, your opponent's probably just going to leave Astromancer in play and not even bother killing it, just so you don't have the out of drawing Prime.
They need a single Eviscerate to kill you if you don't freeze
Oi, oi, oi.
Rap Golem here. Tom's list doesn't have Eviscerate, but there's plenty of ways to generate things when you have spell lackeys.
Oh, Cold Neophyte off the top. Even if there was the dream draw of Apprentice, it's just going to bring them back down to their regular cost again.
That is correct. I want to see just space made for Cold Neophyte Tekkan, and then he can chill. As long as the Neophyte comes down, he can still trade off this 1-1.
You just trade away the 4-4, like that's fine here, I think, right?
Oh, correct. Yeah, that one is the fake minion. Although you kind of want to push the 4. And you kind of don't want to kill the Solarian.
That's fair. That is fair.
Yeah. It's close. Oh, he's just not playing the Neophyte.
Wow.
So DawN has a Sorceress
There's a chance,
out?
right? Oh.
Wait,
Raz
that's insane
plus
too.
Astromancer, he can... What does he
But
do?
the Rap Golem Reborn is still annoying.
Right. So he goes... Astromancer, Raz, Missiles. Okay, discover a spell first. Maybe find something better like Frost Nova to freeze the board.
Oh my god. That's insane. Just Raz Nova, and it's like you don't want to kill the Rap Golem with the Raz. You want to leave it frozen so that the Reborn can't attack. So leaving one spell damage minion on board is pretty perfect here.
Yeah, it works out perfectly. Everything's frozen. There's not that much that can be developed, obviously, because of board space issues. And then next turn, you just try and use the Raz to obliterate everything.
But Tom has Goblin Lackey. Not much board space to work with it.
Oh.
So he has to go like
So
questing.
many
I don't know if this Ray of Frost has Twin Spell or not, but rush the questing. Deal with Raz. Oh, I forgot. These are 4/4s.
They're 4/4s anyway. Oh my god, they're not even 1/1s, obviously. Oh my god. Get obliterated, Raz.
But DawN has bought himself time, right? They're still out. Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Neophyte still not played. His primes, like his Astromancer still aren't dead, so he can't get the primes in his deck. Ray of Frost maybe can buy him that one turn he still needs though.
And Cobalt Spellkin can generate more missiles, which are strangely very effective on this board state. At that point, you probably
Freeze,
just play Evo.
Ping.
Yeah.
It's over, right? He has to go Evo. Frost Nova!
Another Nova!
Oh!
Hello, what? Okay, so he goes Learn Draconic,
Mirror Image,
Mirror Image, yeah.
Frost Nova, and then just play the Rain Freeze, I
'cause
suppose.
you can, yeah.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Job done.
DawN's just in the driver's seat again.
Is he though? I literally don't know. Like,
I mean,
he
even if
doesn't
the
have enough
Neophyte
stuff
comes
on
down,
board.
he can play Power of Creation and freeze next turn, but then
It's
all
true.
of these small health been frozen. It's just that Tom's turn is so bad.
It's the board space again and again and again is his problem.
Give me a quest.
Neophyte Edwin? Questing Neophyte?
Just
That's a dead Solarian. That can be drawn now. That is an out.
Whew. One Power of Creation to end them all. I don't
So-
even know what the best outcome is. Like soccer.
I think it's just a freeze turn with Cobot Spellkin instead. Like, you can go Spellkin, freeze, Spellwing, and you can stop
What to do?
8
9
damage
damage?
coming through. Oh yeah, 9,
It's a
sorry, I
5-1 and
suppose.
the questing.
Right, right.
Okay, you're technically alive.
I mean, you could also not go for the Spellkin and just go Ray of Frost, Ping to kill off the 5-1, which stops the highest amount of damage, and then you're almost certainly not dead. And you get a 6-6 as well,
Yeah.
I believe.
True.
A simple
I
step.
like the idea of semi-board locking Tom. The idea that if he wants to play a mini, he has to go through these taunts and then trade off with the
Okay.
Solarian. So I like the original plan of double Ray and spell. And that would have gotten the 6-6, right?
Yeah, the problem is that this line doesn't summon him as 6-6, which would actually be a pretty huge deal in trying to represent counter-lethal.
For sure. That's air for Tom.
Oh, this is so close!
A little bit short of lethal.
Brotherhood shall prevail.
And he needs to send 3 damage into the O2 because
Uh-huh.
yeah. So it's like Neophyte into O2, Dagger into O1, Miscreant into 1-1. Probably just leave the Solarian up so there's less
Yeah, yeah,
chances
yeah.
of top decking Prime and then send 8 face.
Agreed. And then Evocation on the other side? You see it happening?
Kinda has to, it feels like, unless it's Prime off the top.
So you go freeze
Fine.
with Ray of Frost, because that's just good.
I feel like enough as he hits. I mean, it's just one space more in hand to possibly hit Nova or Blizzard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, you ever start with the missiles then?
If he goes Evocation first, he can hit Deep Freeze as well, but that doesn't keep him alive.
Just so hard to optimize.
Blizzard! Blizzard!
It's right there, and it kills the O3. He can send 6 damage face. But on the other hand, Tom has hit the secret passage.
For one card? Like, ah!
Wait, he doesn't have cards in deck. I didn't notice how much he drew already. What?
Time runs
They've
out.
got nothing left.
There's no natural eviscerate in the deck. I think DawN's got this.
Face. Lethal next turn. He's pulling this one out the bag. That's not it.
Far too late. Plagiarize, if it came at any earlier point, could have given Tom evocation, something along those lines. But these mirror images have stopped so much damage this game.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
I'm out of cards.
Yeah, Tom realizing plagiarize doesn't help him there, so he's trying to just preload the prep for that 1 mana.
It had to be like double spell there. It's not coming through. Tom throws it down, and DawN, in his first game of the round robin, first series, takes a 3-1 victory over former world champion Tom in an incredibly grueling final game there. It was back and forth. You didn't know who was in the lead. I didn't know who was in the lead. I don't think the players, to be perfectly honest, knew who was in the lead until all the dust settled right at the end.
So intense there. And props to DawN for finding ways to survive turn after turn. That questing grew to 2020 and was just staring him down every single turn, but never able to connect for quite enough damage. That game had so many decisions involved, and I'm so happy to see it come down that way without a prime or a box even entering the equation.
Yes, as am I. I think that it was very well handled. There are a couple of really sick spots there. I think, like, as we were talking about, sapping or blackjack stunnering the giant back to the hand to destroy it, and getting the Solarian back in the hand without it dying, importantly. So Solarian Prime was even further away. Never killing them when possible on Tom's side. I think towards the end there for DawN, summoning the 6/6 a little bit earlier off of the Learn Draconic side quest was probably a bit more of a higher importance than he actually gave it in the end. But still,
Right.
a super cool example of how the Mage versus Rogue matchup, very back and forth, very, very difficult to predict who is going to be in the lead. But DawN does end up being the victor both times, both on the Mage and the Rogue.
I do want to say that for Tom, I had a big question about the turn he didn't go for Neophyte alongside, I think, a questing.
Yeah.
That felt like if he had played it that turn, it just removed the vast majority of DawN's outs or just made him have way less chances with evocation. And that turn, had it come down a bit earlier, could have changed the entire landscape of the late game. But throughout the rest of the game, just very, very well fought. And I don't even feel like it went that long, despite this being much longer than average in APAC.
Yeah, that does mean that we are all done with our third match of the day. 2 more yet to come, of course, here with 5 matches on Saturday in APAC. I believe, taking a look at the schedule, we're sticking with Division A for one more with Blitzchung versus Tyler up next, one that I'm very excited to see before we head back to Division B for Rivius versus Alan to close things out. We're going to go to an ever so slightly longer break now, so if you need to grab a snack, get a drink, whatever you need to see you through the rest of the day of Hearthstone action, do so now, because you absolutely are not going to want to miss it. Blitzchung versus Tyler. Blitzchung narrowly getting through to Division A at the last minute in a very impressive fashion, but he's got his work cut out for him against Tyler. We'll be right back.